All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us this morning for our virtual field trip to an Ohio pig farm. My name is Megan Winters, and I work at the Ohio Pork Council, where I work alongside Ohio's pig farmers. So before we get started, I would like to thank National Pork Board for sponsoring today's program. And without further ado, I will introduce our farmer host for today. So this morning we have Phil Horde with us, and he is a fifth generation pig farmer, and he is responsible for finding new creative ways to care for pigs, from improving their diets, their barns, and ultimately their way of life. Alongside his family and team members, Phil raises pigs from birth to market. So Phil, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Tell our students, where are you joining us from this morning, and how many pigs do you have there in that barn?
Good morning, Megan. We are in a nursery barn today. These pigs are about 9 weeks old now and weigh about 55 pounds. So they have come here to this barn. This is a barn that is specifically designed for little pigs. And these ones in this barn are getting ready to move to the next barn, to the growing barn. They have almost outgrown their pens, and some of the other farmers here at this uh, farm today, we're actually moving some of these ones out to the next barn. So they came here about 6 weeks ago when they were 3 weeks old, 21 days old, and they came here when they were about 13 pounds. So like I said earlier, these ones now are about 55 pounds on average. So they've gained quite a bit during that time. So at this barn, we before they get here, they are not born here. So these pigs come here from a birthing barn, and where the mother pigs are kept, and they give birth to their piglets. So that's a specialized barn for the birthing. So they stay with their mom for about 3 weeks, and from there they come here to this barn where we are today.
Very good. Phil, do you want to go ahead and flip your camera around to say hi to our students and maybe talk to us about anything special that you might have to do before you go into the barn there with the pigs?
Yeah. So at this barn, we have a showering process because we like to make sure we're not bringing any sort of uh, diseases or germs into the pigs. So we have a special shower room. You can see just like she did, she showered in. Her clothes stayed on the dirty side, which is the side there. She showered, and then she has special barn clothes. I'm wearing clothes today that stay here in this barn only. They're washed here. That way, we're not bringing in outside germs into the pigs when we come to visit them. And that's mainly because we want to keep them as healthy as we can. So in this room here, I guess I'll just swing around here. So we have a hallway and we have 4 rooms here in this barn. Here at this barn, we actually have a little control outside of each room that is telling us how warm it is. So we can see it's about 60 degrees outside, but we're keeping it roughly in that 73 range. So this barn is able to temperature control when it gets cool outside. When it's really cold, we have heaters and we heat the air. But in the summer, we also have fans, and I'll show you that. But here, I'll just go ahead and turn on some of these little lamps for you, and we'll go back into the room, and I'll show you what that does. These lamps are on, whoops, did they turn on? They didn't turn on. I did something wrong. Let's go back. Okay, I flipped them the wrong way. So you can see these lamps turn on, and they're up right now. They are hovering over the pen at a higher height because when they're this size, they don't need that extra heat that is coming from these lamps. But I thought I would show you when they come in here, we bring bring them in the pen, and we have these lamps that come down, and they provide a little area of warmth, as well as we have big heaters on the other side of the barn that blow hot air. Heat the room. Today, because these pigs are bigger, and because and this is one of the ways we bring fresh air into the barn, there's fans that pull the air uh, through the through that fan and through these little things in the ceilings here. If you see this long gray thing right here, that's where the air comes from, and then it comes and pulls it right through there, and that's how we get fresh air and cool the room for the pigs. Can go ahead and show you guys where they eat. So you can see some are getting a snack right now. Our pigs at this age, and the growing pigs, they have access to as much food as they want. So they have an all day, all night buffet whenever they want to have food. You can see that in this pen, they're actually napping. So they like to cuddle up with each other after they get some food, and then they go and take a nap. And that's pretty much what they do. They get to play and have fun all day. You can see that in the back there, that pig that has its mouth on the silver thing, that is actually where they get their water. So their water comes and they walk up to it, and they can get a drink there whenever they want to, or come get some food, or just hang out and take a nap. So I'll show you the food a little bit closer here. Their food is primarily made up of corn and soybean meal for their protein, vitamins and minerals, and other things that we use to basically help keep them healthy and strong and have them grow. This food is different at different times in their life. So if you guys remember when you were babies, you drank milk, and that's what these babies did when they drank milk from their mom when they were young. But as they got older, they started to eat different kinds of food. So we go to a little different kind of food at different stages of their life. But this is a good representation of what the food looks like. How many of you have seen corn and soybeans? Those are the two main things that I was just showing you there. Yep.
So Phil, let's take a step back. You were just talking about how when these pigs are little, they will drink milk from their mother. So we have a quick video that we can put up here on the screen, but talk to us about, how old were these pigs when they moved over to this barn, and what did the barn look like that they were previously living in?
Yeah, so these pigs were born in a birthing barn. So that barn looks more like has room for individual pens, birthing pens for the moms, for the mother pigs. Those are called sows, and that's where they give birth to their piglets. And then those piglets stay with their mom for about 3 weeks, and they nurse on her. I think that's what this. You can watch this video here, but this little farrowing stall keeps the mother and the piglets safe. The piglets have area to get away from the mom, so that there's no accidental crushing or anything happening. So from when they grow, they're drinking milk from their mom. You wipe them off when they're first born, put them under the heat lamp or the heat mat, and pigs can start walking and drinking milk from their mom right away as soon as they're born. So that's one really cool thing about pigs. Yes, a group of pigs, like in this case, those are called a litter.
And Phil, how many piglets are typically in a litter?
Roughly 14 to 15 pigs are in a litter today. So that has definitely increased over time. But each sow will have roughly that amount of pigs. So when they are about 3 weeks old, that's when we move them to the barn where we are today. So they came right from that birthing farm right to this farm. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a barn for piglets that are just this size. We wouldn't keep them in here until, much longer. Um, so yes, as 42 to 56 days, 6 to 8 weeks, they will move.
So Phil, we have a question here in the chat. I would like to remind everyone, if you're joining us through Zoom, you can submit your questions through the Q&A function. And then if you're joining us through YouTube, you can insert your questions in the comments section and Farmer Phil can answer those for you. So we have a question here in the chat from Miss Hannah Wald's class, and they would like to know, how much does a mother pig weigh? So you told us that these pigs here are about 55 to 60 pounds. So how much would a mother pig weigh in comparison?
A mother pig weighs about 500 to 600 pounds, depending on 400 to 600, depending on their age and their breed, the type of pig that they are. But they are much, much, much bigger.
We had a question prior to our trip, Phil. Miss Ball's class would like to know, how do you keep the pigs clean? It looks pretty clean in there. And I think sometimes when we're reading stories or books, pigs are kind of dubbed as dirty animals, but it looks like your animals are actually pretty clean, Phil. So how do you keep them clean?
Yep. So they actually keep themselves clean. It's very, pigs are naturally ones that, of course, when it's hot outside and they have access to want to roll in the mud, that's great. We have other ways to keep them cool, but one way we keep their pens really clean is that there's little slots. Well, there's little slots in the floor where their manure will go down, so it doesn't stay in their pen, but actually goes down through those little slots into a manure compartment in the bottom of the floor. So that's where the manure goes, and stays there until we can able to take that out of there and use it as a natural fertilizer on the fields to grow more crops.
Very good. Yeah, Phil, that kind of leads to a question that we had from Columbus City Schools. They actually asked, how do you handle that animal waste and what do you do to ensure that it doesn't contaminate any surrounding areas?
Very good question. So actually holding it in this pit is what it's called, a PIT. We call it just a big pit. It's a concrete structure under there, and it's held in that structure, and it is not. It's proofed so that it stays in that structure, so that when we have the ability to get it out, when the ground is ready to accept that natural fertilizer, the manure, we actually it's in liquid form. Because the urine and the feces are both going down. So we can actually suck that out of this pit with a big tractor, and we go to the fields and we actually incorporate it into the soil. So if you can think of taking a little plow and you plow the ground and then you just drop some manure on and then you cover that back up, it's actually kind of injecting it into the soil so that it's not laying on top of the ground, but rather is inside the ground and ready to be used by the crops that are getting ready to be grown.
Very good. So Phil, I know you had mentioned that there are many ways to raise pigs. This modern barn that you're in allows you to protect your pigs from the elements, the weather, natural disasters, anything like that. We have a question from YouTube, and they would like to know, how do pigs act when it might be storming outside, and how does this barn protect them?
Yeah, so this barn is really good during storms. So we just are coming out of winter, right? When we have a lot of snowstorms, a lot of wind. This is especially when the pigs are small like this. We want to keep them as comfortable as we can, right? Because we don't want them to get chilled. But these barns are very protective from all of the elements. So like I said, we can heat the barns, we can cool the barns. It keeps them dry, right? We have, you can see there's a ceiling here. It's a strong, sturdy roof on both sides, and it also helps keep predators out as well. So, other wild animals that may uh, put the pigs in danger. That's just also a way for us to keep them safe and away from harm's way.
Very good. We have a couple questions here in the chat, Phil. What kind of pigs are these? Are they a certain breed? And then we have another question here. Do you name these pigs, or how do you keep track of all of them?
Yep. Yep. So this is a crossbreed of different breeds. But the main breeds, if you guys look up some different kinds of pig breeds, are land race, large white, Chester white. Yeah, we can see these ones in here. Some Hampshire, Yorkshire. There's kind of a blend of those throughout their history, from what their ancestors were, from when they were bred and born. But they mainly would be closer to that land race in York and Chester white. And then the other question there, revolving around naming them, we do not name each one. Farmers, we might, in this group of pigs, we might have a favorite one that we name, but we actually keep track of them by pen. So this particular pen in this room is 3D, so row D, and then this is pen 1. So that's how we keep track of them in this barn. Whenever we do something to these pigs in this pen, we have ways of tagging each individual pig or identifying them if we need to with a little ear tag. So we can do that if we need to individually identify them, or remove them from the pen into a hospital pen if something is, if we're helping them recover from an injury or an illness. There's ways that we keep track of them, but we know exactly where these ones came from, which birthing farm they came from, and we will follow them all the way to market, knowing where they were born and when they were born, and all the things that went into them, all the feed that they ate. We have just to check the data to make sure we have the best that are able to be born and raised for food.
Very good. So Phil, along with that, do you work with a veterinarian to treat, let's say, a pig that might not be as feeling as well, or how does that work?
Yes. So on our farm, we have a veterinarian who helps prescribe all of the medications and things that we use. He's also involved in helping train our farmers and caretakers on how to use different treatment mechanisms. Um, we also go through a certification process called PQA that we have to learn about the different kinds of medications and how we can use them appropriately according to our veterinarian's directive and what the label says. So there's a lot of reasons why it's very important for pigs and any animals to be under the care of a veterinarian, so they can provide the best advice and direction from their point of view, from a vet's point of view.
Very good. We have a question here in the chat from Miss Isler, and she would like to know, so Phil, you had mentioned that these pigs are being raised for food production. So how long does it take these pigs to reach that market weight? And then how long does a sow or a mother pig typically live to be?
Yeah, so these pigs will be about 6 to 7 months old when they go to market, when they go to be harvested. So these ones will have roughly about 4 more months to go here, 4 to 5 months. A mother pig can live up to several years. So they have to be um, roughly over 200 days old. More than that, but that would be a good number to tell you before they can actually be bred and have their first litter. But some of them will be with us for 4 or 5 years if they are producing and are good in good health, and we're happy to have them be with us that long.
Very good. So Phil, you had mentioned that at this stage in life, the pigs pretty much have an all-day buffet. They can eat as much as they want, drink as much as they want. We have a question from Miss Norman's class, and they would like to know, how much does an adult pig eat per day in comparison to these smaller pigs?
Yeah, that's a great question, guys. So these little pigs are eating about at this age about 2 pounds per day. So 2 pounds of food per day. A mom pig or a big mother pig, they might be so a growing pig and a pig that age, they can eat anywhere from 5 to 8 pounds. So they can eat quite a bit of food, depending on their size and what each stage of growth that they are in.
Very good. So Phil, you had mentioned earlier that this is a nursery barn, and you were telling us before the trip started that they're actually going to be moving some loads in and out of this barn. So how do you transport your pigs from, let's say, a birthing barn to this nursery, or maybe into another growing barn? Do you transport them in a trailer, or do you have a large truck? How do you transport them, and how do you care for them in that instance?
Yeah, so they would be loaded onto the trailers. We have special trailers that are designed for pigs that we use to move them from farm to farm. So you can see in the video here, these ones are being taken from the birthing farm and they're going into a nursery barn. So that's about the size they are when they're about 3 weeks old. When they get to be bigger, they will use a different kind of trailer to be moved to the growing barn. And so we open up their pens. We have a loading dock where we can back that trailer up and we just move them onto the trailer that way.
Very good. We have quite a few questions here in the chat that we can go ahead and answer. Miss Miley would like to know, are these pigs going to be used for 4-H projects?
These ones are not actually. So these ones are just being grown for us to raise and care for, and then eventually harvest them for food. So our bacon, our ham, our pork chops, that's what these pigs are being raised for. So that can sound kind of scary, right? Or it's hard to understand, but it's our job as farmers to give the best care to these pigs as we can, so that we have a safe and good food supply. So when we go to the store, we can feel comfortable about what's there on the shelf that we can buy.
Very good. So Phil, when you move the pigs from the birthing farm into this farm, do you typically keep the pigs together per litter and then put them in those pens, or how do you decide how many pigs go into each one of those pens?
So they're not kept together by their litter, but they are kept together in the stage in which they were moved into this barn. So these ones would have came in around the same time from the same group of mother pigs. We can actually trace that back, but Megan, remind me the rest of the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just how do you decide how many pigs to put into each pen?
Oh, sure. Sorry. Yeah. So these pens at this size, they were actually stocked originally with 27 pigs per side. So 27 little piglets went into this pen, 27 little piglets went into this pen. And then as they get older, obviously that's why we have to move them out of here. They've outgrown this little nursery stage and they're ready for the bigger pens, the bigger size of the growing barn. And those pens can be about double that size. So they would be in that 50 to 60 pigs per pen range in the growing barns in our farms.
Great. We have a question from YouTube. What do you call a group of pigs? And at this stage in their life, do they have teeth?
A group of pigs is called a group of pigs, I think, unless I'm unless I'm missing something there. They a lot of times we would call this a group, right? Those ones in this room, they're a group of pigs. As far as sorry. Yeah, and then these pigs in this barn, they would be roughly they're so the pigs are born with teeth. I don't know if I can show you guys some. Maybe I can have one show you some teeth, but they do have teeth, and they can bite, but they're very friendly. So I can put my hand in here. I'm not afraid that they're going to intentionally be mean to me. They're kind of used to us farmers being in their pens with them, but they do have teeth.
All right, we have a question here from Miss Long's second grade class. How tall is a fully grown pig? And how tall are these pigs in comparison maybe to you, Phil?
So these pigs, so I'm about 6 foot tall. These pigs would be roughly about a foot or a foot and a half tall, depending on their frame size. A mother pig, she can be roughly, 4 feet tall, 4.5 to 5 feet tall, depending on generally probably more at that 4 feet level. And it wouldn't be a little bit less than that for a growing pig, just because the mother pigs are generally larger than the birthing moms or the moms that are having piglets. So none of them are as tall as humans that I'm aware of on our farms, but mainly would be in that 3 to 4 foot height range when they're full grown.
So Phil, I know you had mentioned earlier that that one pen of pigs was just kind of sleeping and hanging out. So we have a question from Miss Sponsler's class, and they would like to know, how long do the pigs sleep per day?
They sleep when they're really young. They sleep a good chunk of the day. Like I think it's about 75% plus hours per day. At this age, they're a lot more active. So they will stay up and play around. You can just tell they just kind of play with each other here. But so they'll sleep maybe more than half of their time.
So
So it gets less as
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, it just at different stages of their life, it depends on what's going on, of how tired they are and how much they want to take a nap. But you can see those ones in the back of this pen, they are ready for their nap.
So speaking of that, Phil, we have a question from YouTube. Do the pigs ever play or get in fights or anything like that?
Yes, they can play, can get in fights. I don't think that they look at it as fighting. I think they look at it as a fun activity. But they're generally pretty fun. I think the funny thing to watch is when they almost can do like a little wrestling match sometimes, and that's really funny to watch.
So Phil, here's an interesting question from Miss Dixon. Do the pigs have curly tails or will they stay straight like we see here?
So our pigs, their tails are trimmed when they're really young, within their first week of being born. So their tails will stay exactly like this. They'll get a little bit bigger as the pigs get older, but they will stay this same general shape and proportionate to the rest of their body. If we were not to do the tail trimming, some of them would be curly, but generally it's not going to be a huge, lots of curls or anything like that. But we do this as a way to help prevent that to be an extra area for injury or infection. And it's really helpful once the pigs are together in pens like this and when they get older.
Very good. We have a question from Miss DeWitt's class. Do pigs ever take mud baths?
Some pigs do, absolutely. Yeah, they can. So like I said earlier, some farmers have their pigs outside, or they have special penning areas where maybe they make mud baths for them so that they can get cool. Our farms, especially our growing farms, we have big fans, right, where that we're moving air. And then we also have misters. In this farm, we don't have them because these pigs are young, but in the growing farms, we have some misters. And so that cooling of them through the mist in the air and the fans running is what cools them off in our farms. But if my pig was outside and I didn't have any way to blow air on it or to cool it off, then sure they would probably find their nearest mud hole and want to soak it up.
We have a question from Miss Ritter's class, Phil. Did you have to go to school to learn how to do all of this? Or, if you wanted to be a farmer when you grew up, where would you start and how would you learn those skills?
Yeah, so I did not go to school to for anything animal oriented. I grew up on the farm, and I have had a lot of people around me that they studied animals, they studied agriculture. I studied business when I went to school, and that's really important because when we look at things such as their food and their buildings and the things that we have to do to keep them safe, those are all things that we that cost. And so my fun job has been to look at how do we raise the pigs to be as healthy as they can, and try to be mindful of that cost so that we can keep the prices low for our consumers. So that's been one area that I did. But there's lots of different ways, whether that be technology, whether that be through animal science, like I mentioned, veterinary care. Um, there's the feed milling, so where the food is made before it comes here and it gets into their pens. So there's people that specifically work on that. There's just a lot of different ways and opportunities to get involved on the farm.
Absolutely. Phil, can you remind us where do they get I see are their feeder here, but where do they drink their water from? Could you maybe show us what that looks like?
Yeah. So you see that pig that's got his nose down right there? That is where their water comes from. It's a little then in their nose, and then they can drink the water as much as they want. You can see this one; she's starting to drink.
Very good. Another question that we have come in here in the chat. How do you tell if your pig maybe isn't feeling well, Phil? And maybe remind us what you do to treat those pigs.
Yeah. So at this age, what we do every day is we get them all up. So when we walk the barn, we get them all up. And if one is not feeling well, a lot of times they won't get up, whether they have an injury to one of their legs or maybe they're not feeling well. So farmers learn that by intuition. We learn that by looking at the pigs every day. And if we have one that needs to be removed from the pen or to be treated, we will do that, right? We'll either remove it from the pen and then take it to a hospital pen. Or if it's a minor thing that we can treat while they're in their pen, we will do that. We'll leave them in there. But there's different tools. We have things such as antibiotics. So if there was some infection that we needed to treat, we can use that, which is prescribed by the veterinarian on our farm to use. We'll follow through the treatment, and a lot of times that is all that's needed to help them recover and recoup.
Very good. We have a couple interesting questions here in the chat, Phil. Do pigs oink when they sleep? It seems pretty quiet there in the barn.
They do not oink when they sleep per se. I wouldn't say that, but they do oink. I would say when I'm explaining what sound that pigs make, I say they sound more like a squeal than they do an oink. But uh, it all depends on how you listen to it, I suppose.
We have another question here from Miss Long's class. They would like to know, do pigs have a lot of hair or what does their skin feel like?
Okay, so if you see this one, you can see the little hair on its back. It's got just a very little amount of hair, but otherwise their skin is smooth, right? It's think of like your arm, right? You've got a little bit of hair on your arm, uh, but then you still see your skin underneath. That's pretty much exactly how the pigs are.
So Phil, when you might be moving these pigs to another barn or maybe moving them to another pen, do they ever like to run, and are they able to run fast?
Oh yeah. Do you guys want to see some run? I'll let some out, then they can run. We'll let them go this way. They will love it. Of course, they're not going to perform. Oh, there you go. You see that one? So they kind of do like a little hop. They can run really fast though. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. That's how they run.
Very good. We had a question in the chat. Have any of your pigs ever escaped?
Um, if they can, pigs are smart, so if they figure out how to get the doors open, these gates are made so that they can, we have to open them in a special way, so they can't open them themselves. But we've had the occasional a few escape, but it's a very rare thing that happens.
So Phil, as we kind of get close to the end of our time here, would you maybe want to walk us through kind of the overall life cycle again? Tell us how old these pigs are when they move to this barn and how long it takes them to grow to their full size.
Yeah. So these pigs, when they're born, they're about 2 or 3 pounds, and they are with their moms. So the mom pigs or the sows are bred, and then it takes about 114 days for them to have their piglets. So around that time, that's when they have them. They're born, like I said, about 2 to 3 pounds, and they stay with their mom in the birthing pens, birthing stalls for about 3 weeks. And they're in that 13, 14, 15 pounds at weaning. Then we're in the barn where they come to after the birthing farm. We're in the nursery farm here today, where they stay for about 6 to 8 weeks. And they leave here when they're about 55 to 65 pounds. From there, they move on to the growing barn, which is the barn specifically for large growing pigs. So that's the barn that these little guys are going to go to next. Um, and they stay there for about 115 days until they're ready for market, and then they are sold and harvested for food from there.
Very good. And then Phil, tell us again, what are girl pigs called and what are boy pigs called?
Yeah, girl pigs are called goats, and boy pigs are called boars or barrows, depending on their type, where if they have been castrated or not.
Very good. And then Phil, what is your favorite part about working on a pig farm every day?
I love working with the animals. I think most farmers take a lot of pride and joy in working with animals and seeing them grow and seeing them be healthy. And part of my job here at the farm is to make sure that their food and what they're eating is the best that it can be. And so that's where a lot of my time is spent. Those are the things that I really enjoy.
Very good. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our students while we have them here today? Anything else you want to show them there in the barn or share with them about pig farming?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to show you guys a little bit about rest of the barn here. Um, we've got a little bit of, see these little red things? We use those when they're small, and we put their food in there, and it gives them another place to get their food when we're recuperating some of them in the hospital pens. That's a fun little thing that we use. You can see here in this hallway that we have some pigs that are being weighed in their scales. We're doing some work here at this farm specifically to look at some pigs growth and different kinds of foods. That's about it. So I'm happy that you guys were able to come to the farm with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Phil. We really enjoyed our time there. And I would just like to thank everyone for supporting our virtual field trip program. We do have one more trip this afternoon at 1 o'clock. If you would like to join us again, we will be at a different farm this afternoon. And then we will kick our program off again next fall. So if you're interested in joining us again next fall, you can find more information on that at ohiopork.org/fieldtrip. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you all have a great day and enjoy your summer vacation that's coming up.
See you guys.